I thought I was about to marry the love of my life. But on my wedding day, I discovered my best friend was secretly stealing him away. That's exactly what happened to me. But what I did next left everyone in shock. When I first met Kabir, it felt like the universe had conspired to bring us together. It was at a friend's birthday party, one of those casual gatherings where you don't expect anything magical to happen. But then he walked in. His smile was warm, his laughter easy, and when his eyes met mine across the room, it was as though the noise around us faded into silence. We spoke for hours that night. Not about anything grand or extraordinary, just simple things, the kind of conversations that slip into comfort before you even realize it. He asked me about my dreams, listened intently when I spoke about my passion for writing, and shared stories of his own childhood. I remember thinking, where has this man been all my life? From that moment, Kabir became my world. The late-night texts, the surprise visits, the endless phone calls that stretched until sunrise. All of it felt like a dream unfolding. Within months, he proposed in the most heartfelt way at the same spot where we had first met. I said yes with tears in my eyes, certain that I was stepping into a forever I'd always longed for. But I wasn't alone in this journey. By my side through every step was Ananya, my best friend, my confidant, the sister life had given me. Ananya and I had been inseparable since school. We had shared secrets and whispered conversations under the covers, wiped each other's tears during heartbreaks, and celebrated every small victory like it was a festival. She wasn't just a friend. She was family. Naturally, when Kabir and I got engaged, there was no doubt in my mind that she would be my maid of honor. She was thrilled, squealing with joy, hugging me so tightly I could barely breathe. "You're going to be the most beautiful bride," she said, her eyes sparkling, "and I'm going to make sure your wedding is perfect." And I believed her. Why wouldn't I? She had always been there for me. The wedding planning began in full swing. My days were filled with trying on lehengas, choosing venues, tasting menus, and shortlisting playlists. Kabir would join in enthusiastically, and Ananya was always there too, taking notes, giving suggestions, and fussing over every detail like it was her own wedding. I often told people how lucky I was, a loving fiancé and a best friend who treated my happiness like her mission. What more could a girl ask for? One evening, as we sat surrounded by swatches of fabric and invitation samples, Ananya suddenly sighed dramatically. "You know," she said, smirking, "sometimes I feel like I'm more excited about this wedding than you are." I laughed, brushing off her words. "That's because you secretly want to marry Kabir yourself," I teased. She giggled, her eyes twinkling mischievously. "Well, if you ever back out, you know who to call." It was a harmless joke, or so I thought. That night, as I lay in bed, I thought about what she had said. It didn't bother me, not then. After all, Ananya had a quirky sense of humor. She often said things that sounded outrageous, but I had always trusted her. She was my best friend. She would never hurt me. At least, that's what I believed. Looking back now, I realize how blind I was to the signs, how I mistook shadows for light and laughter for love. But in that moment, in those early days of my engagement, everything felt perfect. Too perfect, perhaps. My story began like a fairy tale. Little did I know, it would soon twist into a nightmare I could never have imagined. If love stories are the heartbeats of life, friendships are the steady rhythm that keep us alive. For me, that rhythm was Ananya. We had known each other since we were 13. Our friendship began on the very first day of school, when I had walked into class nervously clutching my books, feeling like an outsider. She had smiled, patted the seat next to her, and said, "Sit here. Don't worry, I'll help you survive this jungle." That one sentence marked the beginning of a bond that would shape most of my life. Ananya wasn't just my friend, she was the sister I never had. We grew up together, we shared lunchboxes, copied each other's homework, laughed until our stomachs hurt, and cried into each other's arms during heartbreaks. When my father was in the hospital during my college years, it was Ananya who stayed with me every night, bringing me food, holding me when I broke down. When she failed an exam once and felt like her world was collapsing, I sat with her until morning, reminding her she was worth so much more than a grade. Our lives were intertwined in ways words could never fully explain. People often mistook us for actual sisters. We had the same inside jokes, the same silly gestures, even the same habit of finishing each other's sentences. Sometimes I wondered how I'd gotten so lucky to find a friend like her. Naturally, when Kabir entered my life, Ananya was the first person I introduced him to. I still remember the evening clearly, the three of us sitting in a cafe, sipping coffee, laughing about something Kabir had said. Ananya leaned over to me and whispered, "He's a keeper." And in that moment, it felt like my world was complete. The two most important people in my life got along effortlessly. As the wedding preparations began, Ananya became my anchor. She took over the planning with a zeal that amazed me. From bargaining with decorators to taste testing endless rounds of cakes, she was everywhere, doing everything. Sometimes I wondered if she was more invested in the wedding than I was, but instead of finding it strange, I felt grateful. After all, how many brides had a best friend so dedicated? One night, as we sat cross-legged on my bedroom floor surrounded by wedding catalogs, Ananya suddenly grew quiet. She picked up one of the invitation samples and said softly, "You know, I always imagined that when you got married, I'd feel like I was losing you." I looked at her in surprise. "Losing me? Don't be silly, Anu. You're stuck with me forever. Kabir knows that too." She smiled faintly, her eyes glistening. "I know. It's just, you're like my family. Sometimes I forget you're not my real sister." I hugged her tightly that night, my heart swelling with love for her. If only I had known that her words carried a different weight, a hidden meaning that I was too blind to see. The weeks leading up to the wedding were a whirlwind. Ananya was everywhere, some by my side during dress fittings, cheering me on during dance rehearsals, even managing my endless guest list. She would often joke, This wedding is as much mine as it is yours. I would laugh and agree, never once realizing how literal she meant it. Looking back, there were moments, small, insignificant flashes, that I dismissed at the time, like the way Ananya's eyes lingered a little too long when Kabir was around, or how Kabir's phone would sometimes buzz with her name late at night, and he'd casually say it was about the wedding. I had brushed it all aside, blinded by my trust in both of them. Because in my heart, Ananya wasn't just my best friend, she was my sister. And sisters don't betray you. At least that's what I believed. The days blurred into nights, and the wedding countdown seemed to move faster than my heartbeat. Everything appeared perfect from the outside. A loving fiancé, a supportive best friend, and a dream wedding in the making. But beneath that glittering surface, little ripples began to disturb the calm. It started with glances. Tiny, almost unnoticeable exchanges between Kabir and Ananya. At first, I brushed it off. They had grown close because of the wedding. Of course, they'd talk and laugh together, but sometimes when I caught them looking at each other, it felt like the room shifted. Their eyes lingered a second too long. Their smiles carried something I couldn't quite place. One evening, we were finalizing the seating arrangements. Ananya sat next to Kabir, her arm brushing his as they leaned over the chart. I noticed how she laughed a little too loudly at his jokes, tilting her head in a way I'd never seen before. Kabir, too, seemed unusually at ease, teasing her playfully about her handwriting. I remember sitting there holding the pen, watching them as an uneasy knot twisted in my stomach. "Why are you so quiet?" Ananya asked suddenly, looking up at me. I forced a smile. "Just tired?" "It's been a long day." They both nodded, accepting my answer. But deep down, I knew it wasn't tiredness. It was doubt. That night, when Kabir dropped me home, I asked casually, "You and Ananya seem to be getting along really well." He smiled, eyes fixed on the road. "Of course. She's your best friend. I want her to like me. Isn't that a good thing?" I nodded, ashamed of my suspicion. He's right, I told myself. I'm just overthinking. But the signs didn't stop. I started noticing late-night messages on Kabir's phone. Once, while we were watching a movie together, his screen lit up with Ananya's name. He quickly flipped it over, muttering, just something about the wedding budget. I wanted to believe him, but a quiet voice inside me whispered otherwise. Another time, Ananya showed up at my house wearing a new bracelet. "Kabir helped me pick it out," she said casually. My heart skipped a beat. Why would my fiancé be picking jewelry for my best friend? Still, I laughed it off. "Wow, lucky you. My groom-to-be is spoiling you more than me." She giggled, shrugging. "What can I say? He has good taste." The joke stung, but I swallowed the discomfort. I trusted them both too much to think otherwise. And yet those strange moments kept piling up. At my Sangeet practice, I caught them whispering in a corner, their faces serious. When I approached, they immediately stopped talking, plastering smiles on their faces. "We were just discussing the playlist," Nanya explained quickly. At first, I let myself believe it, but the unease grew louder with each passing day. It wasn't just what I saw, it was what I felt. The way Kabir's laughter changed when Ananya was around, the way her gaze lingered on him when she thought I wasn't looking. One night, as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, I finally admitted the truth to myself. Something wasn't right. But instead of confronting them, I convinced myself it was stress, nerves, the chaos of the wedding. After all, Ananya was my sister in every way that mattered, and Kabir was the man I loved. They wouldn't betray me, or so I thought. Doubt is a cruel thing. It creeps in quietly like a draft under the door, and before you realize it, the whole room feels cold. That's how it began for me, a slow, unsettling chill that I couldn't shake. I tried to tell myself I was imagining things, that wedding stress was making me paranoid, but the more I ignored it, the louder it became. Every time Kabir's phone buzzed, I wondered if it was Ananya. Every time Ananya smiled at him, I wondered if there was more behind it. One afternoon, while shopping for bridal jewelry, Ananya seemed distracted. She kept glancing at her phone, typing quickly, smiling to herself. "Who's making you grin like that?" I teased, trying to sound light. Her cheeks flushed. "Oh, no one. Just work stuff." But I knew her too well. That wasn't her work smile. That was her someone special smile. The same one I had seen years ago when she'd had her first crush. My stomach twisted, but I forced myself to stay quiet. Later that week, Kabir canceled a dinner date we had planned. "Something urgent came up," he said over the phone. His voice was calm, convincing. I almost believed him. But then, scrolling through social media that night, I saw a picture on Ananya's story, a blurry shot of coffee mugs clinking together. I knew that cafe. It was the same one Kabir had once taken me to, calling it our little spot. I stared at the screen for what felt like hours, my heart pounding. I wanted to ask her. I wanted to demand an explanation. But what if I was wrong? What if I was just being paranoid and ruined everything with my accusations? Instead, I smiled the next day when she casually mentioned being too tired to meet me. I didn't ask questions. I buried the doubt deeper inside, but it burned like fire in my chest. Things only grew stranger. During the mehendi preparations, I walked into the room unexpectedly and found Kabir and Ananya standing close, speaking in hushed voices. The moment they saw me, they jumped apart like guilty children caught in the act. "What's going on?" I asked, forcing a laugh. They exchanged a quick glance. Kabir spoke first. "We were just finalizing the surprise dance for you." "Yeah," Ananya added, nodding too quickly. "It's supposed to be a secret." I smiled, but inside my hands trembled. Secrets. Always secrets. That night, sleep evaded me. I kept replaying every strange glance, every hushed whisper, every excuse in my mind. I wanted to trust them, but my heart felt heavy, weighed down by suspicion I couldn't shake off. For the first time in my life, I looked at Ananya and felt something other than love. I felt fear. Fear of losing everything. My fiancé, my best friend, the future I had dreamed of. I remember sitting by the window at 3 a.m., staring at the stars, whispering to myself, "No, She would never do this. He would never do this. But the cold doubt stayed. And in the quiet of the night, a voice inside me whispered what I didn't want to hear. What if they already have? The truth doesn't always arrive like thunder. Sometimes it slips quietly into your life, shattering you without warning. It was 2 weeks before the wedding when I found out. I had stopped by Ananya's apartment unannounced. I wanted to surprise her with the final sketch of my bridal lehenga, something I knew she would squeal over. Her place had always been like a second home to me, so when the door was slightly ajar, I stepped in without hesitation. Anu? I called, balancing the folder in my hands. Guess what? I finally picked the words froze in my throat, because there, in the middle of her living room, stood Kabir. My Kabir. His jacket hung loosely over the back of her chair, his phone charging on her table, and there was Ananya standing too close to him, her hand brushing his arm in a way that was far too intimate to be explained away as friendship. The world seemed to tilt. They both froze when they saw me. Ananya's eyes widened, and Kabir's face drained of color. The silence between us was deafening. What? What are you doing here? My voice cracked. I just dropped by, Kabir stammered. Ananya added quickly, yeah, he was helping me with the guest list. The folder slipped from my fingers, scattering sketches across the floor. My hands shook. The guest list? At your apartment? Alone. Neither of them spoke. Their silence screamed louder than words ever could. I remember backing away, my heart pounding so hard I thought it would break through my chest. Tell me the truth, I whispered. Kabir opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Ananya looked down, tears brimming in her eyes. And in that silence, I had my answer. It wasn't paranoia. It wasn't stress. It was betrayal. I left without another word, my vision blurred by tears. I walked aimlessly, not caring where my feet carried me. My chest ached with every breath, my mind replaying every moment, every lie, every whisper, every strange glance I had ignored. That night, I locked myself in my room and cried until my voice went hoarse. My best friend? My sister. The one person I had trusted with every piece of me. And my fiancé, the man I had dreamed of marrying. They had both betrayed me in the cruelest way possible. I wanted to scream. I wanted to confront them. But more than anything, I wanted to disappear, to vanish into a place where none of this was real. The next morning, my mother knocked gently on my door. Are you okay, Beta? I wiped my swollen eyes and forced a smile. Just tired, Ma. But inside, I wasn't tired. I was broken. And yet beneath the pain, something else stirred. Something cold, sharp, and unyielding. Revenge. If Ananya thought she could steal my happiness, if Kabir thought he could play with my heart, they were both about to learn a lesson they'd never forget. I had always imagined that if someone betrayed me, I would scream, throw things, maybe even collapse dramatically on the floor. But reality was different. When betrayal cut me open, silence spilled out instead of noise. For 3 days, I went about my routine as if nothing had happened. I smiled when people asked about the wedding. I posed for pictures at the Mehendi trials. I even answered Ananya's texts, pretending nothing was wrong. But inside, my heart was a battlefield. At first, I thought about calling off the wedding. It seemed like the obvious choice. But every time I pictured the smug look on Ananya's face, the way her lips curved when she thought she was getting away with something, a new thought took root. Why should I give her that victory? Number. If she wanted to play games with my life, I would play better. And so, the first seeds of a plan began to form. My first move was simple, patience. I stopped confronting them, stopped asking questions, stopped showing any doubt. Instead, I pretended to trust them more than ever. When Kabir canceled another dinner, I kissed his cheek and said, it's okay, I understand. When Ananya bragged about how much Kabir helped her with little things, I laughed and agreed. Inside, every word felt like poison. But on the surface, I wore the mask of the perfect bride-to-be. And while they thought I was blind, I started watching. I memorized the way Kabir's phone lit up at odd hours. I noted how Ananya always seemed to bump into him, at places she had no reason to be. I kept track of their excuses, their timelines, their half-smiles. Piece by piece, I built a map of their betrayal. One night, I even followed Kabir after he said he was meeting a vendor. I stayed far enough behind to avoid suspicion, my hands trembling as I gripped the steering wheel. And when he pulled into Ananya's building, my suspicions hardened into certainty. I didn't cry this time. Instead, a strange calmness filled me. Seeing them together didn't break me anymore. It fueled me. When he came home later that night, I was waiting with dinner on the table, a gentle smile on my face. How was the meeting? I asked sweetly. Productive, he said, without looking me in the eye. I wanted to laugh at the irony. Productive, indeed. That was when I knew I wasn't going to cancel the wedding, not yet. I would let them play their game, let them think they had me fooled. And then, when the moment was right, I would pull the rug out from under their feet so hard that neither of them would ever recover. It wasn't about Kabir anymore. It wasn't even about the marriage. It was about Ananya, my so-called sister. She hadn't just taken my fiancé, she had mocked my trust, spit on years of friendship, and stabbed me with the knife of deceit. This wasn't going to be her happily ever after. It was going to be her downfall. And the first move had already been made. By the time the wedding was just a week away, I had mastered the art of pretending. On the outside, I was the glowing bride-to-be, fussing over flowers and playlists. On the inside, I was sharpening knives, not literal ones, but the kind made of patience, wit, and timing. It was during this time that I came up with the idea of a family dinner. I told everyone it was to celebrate the final countdown before the wedding, a night to laugh, share stories, and bask in the joy of what was to come. But secretly, it was much more than that. This dinner would be my test, my stage. I wanted to see how far Kabir and Ananya were willing to go in front of me, in front of everyone. I wanted to watch them squirm under the weight of their own guilt. When I invited Ananya, she squealed in delight, hugging me tight. You're the sweetest. No one else would even think of this with all the stress you're under. I smiled and squeezed her back, pretending my stomach wasn't churning. You know me. I just want all my favorite people in one place. Kabir, too, looked pleased when I told him. You're amazing, he whispered, kissing my forehead. His lips burned against my skin, not with love, but with lies. The night of the dinner, the table gleamed with candlelight and crystal glasses. My parents sat at one end, chatting happily. My cousins laughed, passing plates of food. And there, sitting side by side across from me, were Kabir and Ananya. I watched them carefully. Their shoulders brushed too often. Their eyes met a beat too long. Ananya laughed at all his jokes, her hand brushing his arm when she thought no one was looking. But I was looking. I saw everything. So, my mother said warmly, are you both ready for the big day? Everything sorted? Kabir smiled, glancing at me. Almost. Just a few finishing touches left, Ananya added quickly. Don't worry, Auntie. I've been making sure everything goes smoothly. The word stung, but I hid it behind a sip of wine. My voice was calm when I asked, Funny, Ananya, you've been spending more time with Kabir than even I have lately. What's your secret? Her fork clattered against her plate. For a moment, she froze. Then she laughed, a bit too loudly. Oh, stop! You know I'm just helping out. Kabir cleared his throat. Yeah, she's been a huge help with vendors. That's all. The room carried on in conversation, but I noticed the way their cheeks flushed. I noticed the way they avoided my gaze for the rest of the evening, and it gave me power. Every time they exchanged a nervous glance, every time their hands twitched under the table, I felt my strength return. They thought they were clever. They thought they were invisible. But the truth was, I had already begun to expose them, without anyone realizing. By the end of the night, as guests prepared to leave, I stood by the door hugging each one goodbye. When Ananya leaned in, her perfume stung my nose. Thanks for tonight, she whispered. You're really glowing, you know. Kabir's lucky to have you. I looked her straight in the eyes, my smile never faltering. Yes, he is. Her eyes flickered, just for a second, and I knew she felt it too. The weight of the storm gathering behind my calmness. Dinner had ended, but the real feast was yet to begin. The dinner had been just the beginning. Watching Kabir and Ananya fumble under my calm questions gave me a taste of what was possible. Now I wanted more. I wanted to strip away their lies layer by layer until there was nothing left to hide. The very next day, I began planting my traps. Subtle things at first. I mentioned to Kabir how happy I was that Ananya was always there for him. His smile faltered, just slightly. Then, with Ananya, I casually told her how grateful I was that Kabir trusted her so much. She laughed too quickly, her eyes darting away. They didn't realize it, but every reaction they gave me was another piece of evidence, another crack in their perfect little act. The real unmasking came a few nights later. I organized a small gathering at my house, just close friends, a casual pre-wedding celebration. Kabir was there, of course, and so was Ananya. The room buzzed with laughter, glasses clinking, music humming softly in the background. I floated through the evening like the perfect hostess, my smile effortless, my voice calm. But inside, my mind was razor sharp. At one point, I stood beside Kabir and looped my arm through his. Darling, I said sweetly, tell everyone how we first met. He smiled nervously, launching into the story. I could feel Ananya's eyes on us the entire time, her expression flickering between admiration and something darker. When the laughter faded, I turned to Ananya. And you, I said lightly, you've known Kabir almost as long as I have, haven't you? Funny how fate works. Her cheeks flushed pink. Well, yes. We've all spent so much time together. Almost like family, I added, my tone sharp beneath the sweetness. Kabir shifted uncomfortably. He excused himself for a drink, and Ananya quickly followed. I stayed back, pretending to mingle, but my eyes never left them. They thought they were being discreet, whispering in the corner. But the nervous glances, the way their bodies leaned too close, the way Kabir's hand brushed hers for a moment too long, it was all there, plain as day. And this time, I wasn't the only one who noticed. One of my cousins nudged me. They seem close, don't they? She whispered. I forced a laugh, my heart racing. Yes, very close, that was it. Proof was no longer just in my head. Others were starting to see it too. The mask was slipping, and I had been the one to loosen it. Later that night, when the guests had left, I sat alone in my room, staring at my reflection. The bride staring back wasn't the same woman from a few weeks ago. She was sharper, colder, stronger. The unmasking wasn't complete yet, but the cracks were showing. Soon, very soon, the entire facade would crumble. And when it did, I wanted everyone, not just me, to see them for who they really were. That night, I didn't cry, I didn't rage. Instead, I smiled. Because for the first time since the betrayal, I wasn't drowning. I was in control. The wedding wasn't going to be my downfall. It was going to be my stage. The wedding week arrived like a glittering dream, and a nightmare hiding beneath silk and flowers. Guests poured in, the house bloomed with music and lights, and everyone's laughter floated through the air. On the surface, it was the celebration of love I'd always wanted, but beneath it, a secret war was about to reach its end. For days, I played the doting bride, smiling for photos, twirling in lehengas, pretending my heart wasn't shattered. All the while, I made sure Kabir and Ananya believed they had won. They thought I was too blind, too naive, too trusting. What they didn't know was that I had already written the final act. The night before the wedding, I gathered everyone for the Sangeet. Friends, cousins, relatives. The room sparkled with laughter and music. Ananya was by my side, glowing in her designer outfit, while Kabir couldn't take his eyes off her. That was exactly what I wanted. When the music paused, I stood in the center of the stage, microphone in hand. I want to share something special tonight, I announced, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. A small video I made for this wedding, a reminder of what love, friendship, and trust mean to me. The lights dimmed, the screen flickered to life. At first, the video showed sweet moments. Kabir and me together, our laughter, our promises. The crowd smiled, clapped, sighed at the romance. Then, the tone shifted. Clips appeared that no one expected. Kabir and Ananya caught in whispers. Glances exchanged when they thought no one was watching. That night at her apartment, filmed discreetly from the street, their smiles, their touches, every hidden betrayal I had collected now played before every single guest. Gasps filled the room. Someone dropped a glass. The music of the night was replaced by silence, thick enough to choke. Ananya's face turned white. Kabir froze, his jaw tight, his eyes wide. And me? I smiled. When the screen went dark, I lifted the microphone again. My voice didn't tremble. This was supposed to be the happiest week of my life. But sometimes life teaches you lessons in ways you never expect. My best friend and my fiancé thought they could write my story for me. But tonight, I'm taking the pen back. Whispers filled the room. My mother covered her mouth, tears in her eyes. My father's face burned with fury. Cousins stared in disbelief. Ananya stepped forward, stammering. It's not what it looks like, I swear. Then what is it? I cut her off, my tone sharp as glass. Because to me, it looks exactly like betrayal. Kabir tried to speak, but the room wasn't his anymore. He had no words that could erase what everyone had seen. His silence was its own confession. I looked at them both, my chest rising with a strange calm. The wedding is off. The trust is broken. And the two of you? You deserve each other. For a moment, no one moved. Then, as if on cue, the music started again, but not for celebration. It was chaos. Voices rising, people shouting, chairs scraping. Ananya fled the room in tears. Kabir followed, his face pale, his future slipping from his grasp. And me? I stood tall, my heart still bruised but my spirit unbroken. This wasn't the ending I once dreamed of, but it was the ending I had chosen. Sweet, sharp, final. Revenge had never tasted so clean. The morning after the Sangeet was eerily quiet. For the first time in weeks, there were no frantic calls about wedding vendors, no lists of things to finalize, no laughter echoing through the halls. The house felt heavy, hushed, as if it too had witnessed the storm and was now catching its breath. I woke up, sunlight spilling across my room, and for the first time in a long while, I felt free. The wedding was gone? Yes. The future I'd carefully built in my mind had collapsed overnight. But strangely, I didn't feel broken anymore. What shattered was not me. It was the illusion I had been clinging to. I poured myself a cup of tea and sat by the window, watching the world outside go about its business. Life hadn't stopped, even though mine had changed forever. Birds still sang, children still laughed in the street. The world was reminding me of something simple. Endings are just disguised beginnings. My parents came in quietly. My mother sat beside me, her hand gently squeezing mine. We're proud of you, she whispered. It takes courage to face the truth and even more courage to walk away. Her words filled my chest with warmth. For the first time, I realized I hadn't lost everything. I still had love, support, and dignity. I still had me. In the days that followed, whispers spread among family and friends. Some pitied me, others admired me. A few were scandalized by the drama, but none of it mattered anymore. What mattered was that I hadn't let betrayal silence me. I had spoken my truth, and in doing so, I had set myself free. Ananya never called. Kabir tried once, sending a long message about mistakes and second chances. I didn't reply. Some doors once closed should never be opened again. Instead, I turned inward. I picked up pieces of myself I hadn't touched in years. I painted again, filling canvases with colors that matched my emotions. I traveled, even if just to nearby towns, letting the road remind me that there was still so much world left to see. And slowly, I began to dream again. Not of weddings or perfect romances, but of a life where I was whole, strong, and unafraid to start over. One evening, weeks later, I stood on the terrace as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of gold and crimson. The same sky under which my world had once collapsed now looked different, brighter, promising, endless. I smiled to myself. A new dawn, I whispered, because that's what it was. Not just the end of betrayal, not just revenge served cold, but the start of something purer, a life where I chose me first. And as the stars blinked awake above me, I knew one thing for certain. My story wasn't over. It had only just begun. Have you ever faced betrayal from someone you trusted? Share your story in the comments. I'd love to hear from you.